Giselle attempted unsuccessfully to contain his surprise. We talked about Adua, about the Union, about his family. Your name was mentioned, actually. Giselle failed to look nonchalant once again. In connection with the coming contest. Adi leaned even closer to him. Fedor was of the opinion that Bremedan Gorst will cut you to pieces. Giselle gave a strangled cough, but he rallied well. Unfortunately, that opinion seems widely held. But not by you, I trust. She stopped and took him by the hand, staring earnestly into his eyes. I'm sure that you'll get the better of him, no matter what they say. My brother speaks very highly of you, and he's stingy in his praise. Mumbled Giselle. His fingers were tingling pleasantly. Her eyes were big and dark, and he found himself greatly at a loss for words. She had this way of biting on her lower lip that made his thoughts stray. A fine, full lip. He wouldn't have minded having a little chew on it himself. Well, thank you. He gave a gormless grin. So, this is the park, said Adi, turning away from him to admire the greenery. It's even more beautiful than I'd imagined. Yes. How wonderful to be at the heart of things. I've spent so much of my life on the edge. There must be many important decisions made here, many important people. Adi allowed her hand to trail through the fronds of a willow tree by the road. Columns worried there might be war in the north. He was worried for my safety. I think that's why he wanted me to come here. I think he worries too much. What do you think, Captain Luthar? He had been in blissful ignorance of the political situation until a couple of hours before, but that would never do as a reply. Well, he said, straining to remember the name, and then with relief. This Bethod could do with a rap on the knuckles. They say he has 20,000 Northmen under his banner. She leaned towards him. Barbarians, she murmured. Savages, she whispered. I heard he skins his captives alive. Giselle thought this was hardly suitable conversation for a young lady. Adi, he began, but I'm sure with men like you and my brother to protect us, we women folk have nothing to worry about. And she turned and made off up the path. Giselle had to hurry once again to catch up. And is that the house of the Maker? Adi nodded towards the grim outline of the huge tower. Why, yes, it is. Does no one go inside? No one. Not in my lifetime, anyway. The bridge is kept behind lock and key. He frowned up at the tower. Seemed strange now that he never thought about it. Living in the Agriont, it was always there. You just got used to it somehow. The place is sealed, I believe. Sealed? Adi moved very close to him. Giselle glanced around nervously, but nobody was looking. Isn't it strange that nobody goes in there? Isn't it a mystery? He could almost feel her breath on his neck. I mean to say, why not just break the door down? Giselle was finding it horribly difficult to concentrate with her so close. He wondered for a moment, both frightening and exciting, whether she might be flirting with him. No, of course not. Just not used to the city was all. The artless ways of a country girl. But then she was very close. If only she were a little less attractive, or a little less confident. If only she were a little less West's sister. He coughed and looked off down the path, hoping vainly for a distraction. There were a few people moving along it, but no one that he recognized, unless... Adi's spell was suddenly broken, and Giselle felt his skin go cold. A hunched figure, overdressed on this sunny day, was limping toward them, leaning heavily on a cane. He was bent over and wincing with every step, the faster-moving travelers giving him a wide berth. Giselle tried to steer Ardy away before he saw them, but she resisted gracefully and made a direct line for the shambling Inquisitor. His head snapped up as they approached, and his eyes glinted with recognition. Giselle's heart sank. There was no avoiding him now. "Why, Captain Luther," said Glockter warmly, shuffling a little too close and shaking his hand. "What a pleasure. I am surprised that Varuth has let you go so early in the day. He must be mellowing in his old age." "The Lord Marshal is still most demanding," snapped Giselle. "I hope my practicals make them convenient for you the other night." The Inquisitor shook his head sadly. "They have no manners at all. But they are the very best at what they do. I swear, the king doesn't have two more valuable servants. I suppose we all serve the king in our own way." There was a little more hostility in Giselle's voice than he had intended. If Glockter was offended, he didn't show it. "Quite fair. I don't believe I know your friend." "No, this is... actually, we've met," said Ardy, much to Giselle's surprise, giving her hand to the Inquisitor. Ardy West. Glockter's eyebrows rose. "No." He bent down stiffly to kiss the back of her hand. Giselle saw his mouth twist as he straightened up, but the toothless grin soon returned. "Column West, sister. You are so much changed. For the better, I hope," she laughed. Giselle felt horribly uncomfortable. "Why, yes indeed," said Glockter. "And you are changed also, son." Ardy looked suddenly very sad. "We were all so worried in my family. We hoped and hoped for your safe return." Giselle saw a spasm run over Glockter's face. "Then we heard you were hurt. How are you?" The Inquisitor glanced at Giselle, his eyes cold as a slow death. Giselle stared down at his boots, a lump of fear in his throat. He had no need to be scared of this cripple, did he? But somehow he wished he was still at fencing practice. Glockter stared at Ardy, his left eye twitching slightly, and she looked back at him undaunted, her eyes full of quiet concern. "I am well as can be expected." His expression had turned very strange. Giselle felt more uncomfortable than ever. Truly, nobody ever does. There was an awkward silence. The Inquisitor stretched his neck sideways, and there was a loud click. "Ah," he said. "That's got it. It's been a pleasure to see you again, both of you. But duty calls." He treated them to another revolting smile, then hobbled off, his left foot scraping in the gravel. Ardy frowned at his twisted back as he limped slowly away. "It's so sad," she said under her breath. "What?" mumbled Giselle. He was thinking about that big white bastard in the street, those narrow pink eyes, the prisoner with the bag on his head. We all serve the king in our own way. Quite so. He gave an involuntary shiver. "He and my brother used to be quite close. He came to stay with us one summer. My family was so proud to have him, it was embarrassing. He used to fence with my brother every day, and he always won. The way he moved, he'd say, "Sam Dan Glockter." He was the brightest star in the sky." She flashed her knowing half-smile again. "And now I hear you are," said Giselle, not sure whether she was praising him or poking fun. He could not escape the feeling that he had been out-fenced twice that day, once by each sibling. He rather fancied that the sister had given him the worst beating. Chapter 8. The Morning Ritual. It was a bright summer's day, and the park was filled to capacity with colourful revellers. Colonel Glockter strode manfully towards some meeting of great importance, people bowing and scraping respectfully away to give him room. He ignored most, favoured the more important ones with his brilliant smile. The lucky few beamed back at him, delighted to be noticed. "I suppose we all serve the king in our own way," whined Captain Luthar, reaching for his steel. But Glocta was far too quick for him. His blade flashed with lightning speed, catching the sneering idiot through the neck. Blood splattered across R.D. West's face. She clapped her hands in delight, looking at Glocta with shining eyes. Luthar seemed surprised to be killed. "Quite so," said Glocta with a smile. The captain pitched over onto his face, blood pouring from his punctured throat. The crowd roared their appreciation, and Glocta indulged them with a deep, graceful bow. The cheering was redoubled. "Oh, Colonel, you shouldn't," murmured Adi as Glocta licked the blood from her cheek. "Shouldn't what?" he growled, tipping her back in his arms and kissing her fiercely. The crowd were in a frenzy. She gasped as he broke away, looking up at him adoringly with those big dark eyes of hers, lips slightly parted.
"The Earth Ector wants you,"
she said with a comely smile. What? The crowd had fallen silent, damn them, and his left side was turning numb. Adi touched him tenderly on the cheek.
"The Earth Ector!"
she shouted. There was a heavy knock at the door. Glocta's eyes flicked open. Where am I? Who am I? Oh, yes. He realized straight away he had been sleeping badly. His body was twisted round under the blankets, his face pushed into the pillow. His whole left side was dead. The beating on the door came heavier than before.
"The Earth Ector!"
came Frost's tongueless bellow from the other side. Pain shot through Glocta's neck as he tried to raise his head from the pillow. There's nothing like the first spasm of the day to get the mind working.
"All right,"
he croaked.
"give me a minute, damn it."
The albino's heavy footsteps thudded away down the corridor. Glocta lay still for a moment, then cautiously moved his right arm, ever so slowly, breath rasping with the effort, and tried to twist himself onto his back. He clenched his fist as the needling started in his left leg. If only the candle would stay numb. But the pain was coming on fast now. He was also becoming aware of an unpleasant smell.
"Barnum!"
howled Glocta, then waited, panting, left side throbbing with a vengeance. Where is the old idiot?
"Barnum!"
He screamed at the top of his lungs.
"Are you all right, sir?"
Came the servant's voice from beyond the door. All right, you old fool. Just when do you think I was last all right?
"No, damn it! I've boiled the bed." "I've boiled water for a bath, sir. Can you get up?"
Once before, Frost had had to break the door down. Maybe I should let it stand open all night. But then how could I sleep?
"I think I can manage,"
Glocta hissed, tongue pressed into his empty gums, arms trembling as he hauled himself out of the bed and onto the chair beside it. His grotesque, toeless left leg twitched to itself, still beyond his control. He glared down at it with a burning hatred. Fucking horrible thing. With vaulting, useless lump of flesh. Why didn't they just cut you off? Why don't I still? But he knew why not. With his legs still on, he could at least pretend to be half alive. He punched his withered thigh, then immediately regretted it. The pain crept up his back, a little more intense than before, and growing with every second. Come now, let's not fight. He started to rub gently at the wasted flesh. All the stuff with each other, so why torment me?
"Can you get to the door, sir?"
Glockter wrinkled his nose at the smell, then took hold of his cane, and slowly, agonizingly pushed himself to his feet. He hobbled across the room, almost slipping halfway there, but righting himself with a searing twinge. He turned the key in the lock, leaning against the wall for balance, and hauled the door open. Barnum was standing on the other side, his arms outstretched, ready to catch it. The ignominy of it. To think that I, Sandan Glockter, the greatest swordsman the Union has ever seen, must be carried to my wrath by an old man so that I can wash my own shit off. They must be laughing loud now, all those fools I beat, if they still remember me. I'd be laughing too if it didn't hurt so much. But he let the weight off his left leg and put his arm round Barnum's shoulders without complaint. What's the use, after all? Might as well make it easy for myself. As easy as it can be. Glockter took a deep breath. Go gently. The leg hasn't woken up yet. They hopped and stumbled down the corridor, slightly too narrow for both of them together. The bathroom seemed a mile away. Oh no. I'll walk 100 miles as I used to be. The bathroom as I am. That's my bad luck, isn't it? Can't go back. Not ever. The steam felt deliciously warm on Glockter's flabby skin. With Barnum holding him under the arms, he slowly lifted his right leg and put it gingerly into the water. Damn, that's hot. The old servant helped him get the other leg in, then, taking him under the armpits, lowered him like a child until he was immersed up to his neck. Glockter cracked a toothless smile. Hot as the maker's forge, Barnum. Just the way I like it. The heat was getting into the leg now, and the pain was subsiding. Not gone, never gone, but better, a lot better. Glockter began to feel almost as if he could face another day. You have to learn to love the small things in life, like a hot bath. You have to love the small things when you've nothing else. Practical Frost was waiting for him downstairs in the tiny dining room, his bulk wedged into a low chair against the wall. Glockter sagged into the other chair and caught a whiff from the steaming porridge bowl, wooden spoons sticking up at an angle without even touching the side. His stomach rumbled and his mouth began watering fiercely. All the symptoms, in fact, of extreme nausea. "Hooray!" shouted Glockter. "Porridge again!" He looked over at the motionless Practical. "Porridge and honey, better than money. Everything's funny with porridge and honey." The pink eyes did not blink. "It's the rhyme for children. My mother used to sing it to me. Never actually got me to eat this slop, though. But now," and he dug the spoon in, "I can't get enough of it." Frost stared back at him. "Healthy," said Glockter, forcing down a mouthful of sweet mush and spooning up another. "Delicious." Choking down some more. "And here's the real clincher." He gagged slightly on the next swallow. "No chewing required." He shoved the mostly full bowl away and tossed the spoon after it. He hummed. "A good breakfast makes for a good day, don't you find?" It was like staring at a whitewashed wall, but without all the emotion. "So, the Arch-Lector wants me again, does he?" The albino nodded. "And what might our illustrious leader desire with the likes of us, do you think?" A shrug. Glockter licked bits of porridge out of his empty gums. "Does he seem in a good mood, do you know?" Another shrug. Come, come, Practical Frost. Don't tell me everything at once. I can't take it in." Silence. Barnum entered the room and cleared away the bowl.
Do you want anything else, sir?
Absolutely. A big half-raw slab of meat and a nice crunchy apple. He looked over at Practical Frost. I used to love apples when I was a child. How many times have I made that joke? Frost looked back impassively. There was no laughter there. Glockter turned to Barnum, and the old man gave a tired smile. Oh well, sighed Glockter. A man has to have hope, doesn't he?
Of course, sir,
muttered the servant, heading for the door. The Archlector's office was on the top floor of the House of Questions, and it was a long way up. Worse still, whenever he felt their eyes on him, Glockter would limp along, smiling, head held high. Whenever he felt himself alone, he would pause and gasp, sweat and curse, and rub and slap the tenuous life back into his leg. Why does it have to be so high? He asked himself as he shuffled up the dim halls and winding stairs of the labyrinthine building. By the time he reached the antechamber, he was exhausted and blowing hard, left hand sore on the handle of his cane. The Archlector's secretary examined him suspiciously from behind a big dark desk that took up half the room. There were some chairs placed opposite for people to get nervous waiting in, and two huge practicals flanked the great double doors to the office, so still and grim as to appear a part of the furniture. "Do you have an appointment?" demanded the secretary in a shrill voice. "You know who I am, you self-important little shit." "Of course," snapped Glockter. "Do you think I limped all the way up here to admire your desk?" The secretary looked down his nose at him. He was a pale, handsome young man with a mop of yellow hair. Puffed-up fifth son of some minor nobleman with overactive loins, and he thinks he can patronize me. "And your name is?" he asked with a sneer. Glockter's patience was worn out by the climb. He smashed his cane down on the top of the desk, and the secretary near jumped out of his chair. "What are you, a fucking idiot? How many crippled inquisitors do you have here?" Said the secretary, mouth working nervously. Is that a number? Speak up." "Well, I'm Glockter, you dolt. Inquisitor Glockter." "Yes, sir, Get your fat ass out of that chair, fool. Don't keep me waiting." The secretary sprang up, hurried to the doors, pushed one open, and stood aside respectfully. "That's better," growled Glockter, shuffling after him. He looked up at the practicals as he hobbled past. He was almost sure one of them had a slight smile on his face. The room had hardly changed since he was last there 6 years before. It was a cavernous, round space, domed ceiling carved with gargoyle faces, its one enormous window offering a spectacular view over the spires of the university, a great section of the outer wall of the Agriont, and the looming outline of the House of the Maker beyond. The chamber was mostly lined with shelves and cabinets, stacked high with neatly ordered files and papers. A few dark portraits peered down from the sparse white walls, including a huge one of the current King of the Union as a young man, looking wise and stern. No doubt painted before he became a senile joke. These days there's usually a bit less authority and a bit more stray drool about him. There was a heavy round table in the center of the room, its surface painted with a map of the Union in exquisite detail. Every city in which there was a department of the Inquisition was marked with a precious stone, and a tiny silver replica of Adua rose out of the table at its hub. The Archlector was sitting in an ancient high chair at this table, deep in conversation with another man, a gaunt, balding, sour-faced old fellow in dark robes. Salt beamed up as Glockter shuffled towards them. The other man's expression hardly changed.
"Why, Inquisitor Glockter, delighted you could join us. Do you know Surveyor General Halleck?"
"I have not had the pleasure," said Glockter. Not that it looks like much of a pleasure, though. The old bureaucrat stood and shook Glocta's hand without enthusiasm.
And this is one of my inquisitors, Sandan Glocta.
Yes, indeed, murmured Halleck. You used to be in the army, I believe. I saw you fence once. Glocta tapped his leg with his cane. That can't have been any time recently. No. There was a silence.
The Surveyor General is likely soon to receive a more significant promotion, said Salt, to a chair on the closed council itself.
The closed council, indeed. A most significant promotion. Halleck seemed less than delighted, however. I will consider it done when it is His Majesty's pleasure to invite me, he snapped, and not before. Salt floated smoothly over this rocky ground.
I'm sure the council feels that you are the only candidate worth recommending, now that Septan Teufel is no longer being considered.
Halleck frowned and shook his head. Teufel? I worked with the man for 10 years. I never liked him. But I would never have thought him a traitor. Salt shook his head sadly.
We all feel it keenly, but here is his confession in black and white.
He held up the folded paper with a doleful frown.
I fear the roots of corruption can run very deep. You would know that better than I, whose sorry task it is to weed the garden.
Indeed, indeed, muttered Halleck, nodding grimly. You deserve all of our thanks for that. You also, Inquisitor. Oh no, not I, said Glocta humbly. The three men looked at each other in a sham of mutual respect. Halleck pushed back his chair.
2 days in the job, said Salt. I give you my word that the king will send for you soon.
Halleck allowed himself the sinister smile, then nodded stiffly to him and stalked away. The secretary ushered him out and pulled the heavy door shut. There was silence. I'll be the one to break it.
I expect you're wondering what this was all about, eh, Glocta?
The thought had crossed my mind, Your Eminence.
I bet it had.
Salt swept from his chair and strode across to the window, his white-gloved hands clasped behind his back.
The world changes, Glocta. The world changes. The old order crumbles. Loyalty, duty, pride, honor. Notions that have fallen far from fashion. What has replaced them?
He glanced over his shoulder for a moment, and his lip curled.
Greed. Merchants have become the new power in the land. Bankers, shopkeepers, salesmen. Little men with little minds and little ambitions. Men whose only loyalty is to themselves, whose only duty is to their own purses, whose only pride is in swindling their betters, whose only honor is weighed out in silver coin. Salt scowled out at the view, then turned back into the room. Now it seems anyone's son can get an education and a business and become rich. The merchant guilds, the mercers, the spicers and their like grow steadily in wealth and influence. Jumped-up, posturing commoners dictating to their natural betters. Their fat and greedy fingers fumbling at the strings of power. It is almost too much to stand. He gave a shudder as he paced across the floor. I will speak honestly with you, Inquisitor. The Archlector waved his graceful hand as though his honesty were a priceless gift. The Union has never seemed more powerful, has never controlled more land. But beneath the facade, we are weak. It is hardly a secret that the king has become entirely unable to make his own decisions. Crown Prince Ladislas is a fop, surrounded by flatterers and fools, caring for nothing but gambling and clothes. Prince Reynald is far better fitted to rule, but he is the younger brother. The closed council, whose task it should be to steer this leaking vessel, is packed with frauds and schemers. Some may be loyal, some are definitely not, each intent on pulling the king his own way. Meanwhile, the Union is beset with enemies, dangers outside our borders and dangers within. Gurkul has a new and vigorous emperor, fitting his country for another war. The Northmen are up in arms as well, skulking on the borders of Angland. In the open council, the noblemen clamour for ancient rights, while in the villages, the peasants clamour for new ones. He gave a deep sigh. Yes, the old order crumbles, and no one has the heart or the stomach to support it. Salt paused, staring up at one of the portraits. A hefty, bald man dressed all in white. Glocta recognized him well enough. Zola, the greatest of all archlectors, tireless champion of the Inquisition, hero to the torturer, scourge of the disloyal. He glared down balefully from the wall, as though even beyond death he could burn traitors with a glance. Zola, growled Salt. Things were different in his day, I can tell you. No whinging peasants then, no swindling merchants, no sulking noblemen. If men forgot their place, they were reminded with hot iron, and any carping judge who dared to whine about it was never heard from again. The Inquisition was a noble institution, filled with the best and the brightest. To serve their king and to root out disloyalty were their only desires and their only rewards. Things were grand in the old days. The archlector slid back into his seat and leaned forward across the table. Now we have become a place where third sons of impoverished noblemen can line their pockets with bribes, or where near-criminal scum can indulge a passion for torture. Our influence with the king has been steadily eroded. Our budgets have been steadily cut. Once we were feared and respected, Glocta, but now we're a miserable sham. Salt frowned. Well, less so. Intrigues and treasons abound, and I fear that the Inquisition is no longer equal to its task. Too many of the superiors can no longer be trusted. They are no longer concerned with the interests of the king, or of the state, or of anybody's interests beyond their own. The superiors couldn't trust it. I swooned with the shock. Salt's frown grew still deeper. And now Ficht is dead. Glocta looked up. Now that is news. The Lord Chancellor? It will become public knowledge tomorrow morning. He died suddenly a few nights ago, while you were busy with your friend Ruse. There are still some questions surrounding his death, but the man was nearly 90. The surprise is that he lasted this long. The Golden Chancellor, they called him, the greatest politician of his day. Even now they're setting his likeness in stone for a statue on the Kingsway. Salt snorted to himself. Greatest gift that any of us can hope for. The Archlector's eyes narrowed to blue slits. If you have any childish notions that the Union is controlled by its king, or by those prating blue-blood fools on the open council, you can let them wilt now. The closed council is where the power lies, more than ever since the king's illness. 12 men in 12 big, uncomfortable chairs, myself among them. 12 men with very different ideas, and for 20 years, war and peace, Ficht held us in balance. He played off the Inquisition against the judges, bankers against the military. He was the axle on which the kingdom turned, the foundation on which it rested. His death has left a hole, all kinds of gaping holes, and people will be rushing to fill them. I have a feeling that whining ass Morovia, that bleeding heart of a high justice, that self-appointed champion of the common man will be first in the queue. It is a fluid and a dangerous situation. The Archlector planted his fists firmly on the table before him. We must ensure that the wrong people do not take advantage of it. The doctor nodded. Meaning, Archlector, we must ensure that it is we who take advantage of no one else. It need hardly be said that the post of Lord Chancellor is one of the most powerful in the realm. the gathering of taxes, the treasury, the king's mints, all come under his auspices. Money, Doctor, money. And money is power, I need hardly tell you. A new Chancellor will be appointed tomorrow. The foremost candidate was our erstwhile Master of the Mints, Septan Teufel.
Something tells me he will no longer be under consideration.
Salt's lip curled. Teufel was closely linked with the merchant guilds, and the mercers in particular.
His sneer became a scowl.
In addition to which, he was an associate of High Justice Morovia. So you see, he would hardly have made a suitable Lord Chancellor. Surveyor General Halleck is a far better choice, in my opinion.
Glockner looked towards the door. Him, Lord Chancellor. Salt got up smiling and moved over to a cabinet against the wall.
There really is no one else. Everyone hates him, and he hates everyone, except me. Furthermore, he is a hard-nosed conservative who despises the merchant class and everything they stand for.
He opened the cabinet and took out 2 glasses and an ornate decanter.
If not exactly a friendly face on the council, he will at least be a sympathetic one.
Seems honest. I trusted to put me in the bath. Would you, Lawrence?
Yes, just as a bonus, I was able to arrange for a sympathetic new Master of the Mints as well. I hear that the mercers are absolutely biting their tongues off with fury. Moravia's none too happy either, the bastard.
Salt chuckled to himself.
All good news, and we have you to thank.
He held out one of the glasses. It was slow death, the archlector's lovely mosaic floor, or just pitching into my face on his table. But there was really no option but to grasp the glass and take a hearty swig. The wine was unfamiliar but delicious, probably from somewhere very beautiful and far away. At least if I die up here, I won't have to make it back down all those steps. But the Archlector was drinking too, all smiles and good grace. So, I suppose I will last out the afternoon after all.
Yes, we have made a good first step. These are dangerous times, all right, and yet danger and opportunity often walk hand in hand.
Glockner felt a strange sensation creeping up his back. Is that fear or ambition or both?
I need someone to help me put matters in order. Someone who does not fear the superiors or the merchants or even the closed council. Someone who can be relied upon to act with subtlety and discretion and ruthlessness. Someone whose loyalty to the Union is beyond question, but who has no friends within the government.
Someone who's hated by everyone. Someone to take the fall if things turn sour. Someone who will have to do mourners at their funeral.
I have need of an Inquisitor-exempt Glocker. Someone to operate beyond the Superior's control, but with my full authority. Someone answerable only to me.
The Archlector raised an eyebrow, as though the thought had only just come to him.
It strikes me that you are exceptionally well suited to this task. What do you think?
I think the holder of such a post would have a great many enemies and only one friend. Glockner peered up at the Archlector. That friend might not be so very reliable. I think the holder of such a post might not last long. Could I have some time to consider it?
No.
Danger and opportunity often walk hand in hand. Then I accept.
Excellent. I do believe this is the start of a long and productive relationship.
Salt smiled at him over the rim of his glass.
You know, Glockner, of all the merchants grubbing away out there, it is the mercers I find the most unpalatable. It was largely through their influence that Westport entered the Union, and it was because of Westport's money that we won the Gurkish War. The king rewarded them, of course, with priceless trading rights, but ever since then their arrogance has been insufferable. Anyone would have thought they fought the battles themselves for the airs they've put on and the liberties they've taken. The Honourable Guild of Mercers, he sneered. It occurs to me now that your friend Ruse has given us the means to hook them in so deeply, it would be a shame to let them wriggle free. Glocta was much surprised, though he thought he did it well. Why? The mercers wriggle free and they keep on paying, and that keeps all kinds of people happy. As things are, they're scared and soft, wondering who Ruse named, who might be next in the chair. If we go further, they may be hurt or finished entirely. Then they'll stop paying, and a lot of people will be unhappy. Some of them in this very building. I can easily continue my investigations, Your Eminence, if you would like me to. Glocta took another sip. It really was an excellent wine. We must be cautious. Cautious and very thorough. The mercer's money flows like milk. They have many friends, even amongst the highest circles of the nobility. Brock, Huygen, Isha, and plenty more besides. Some of the very greatest men in the land. They've all been known to suck at that tit one time or another, and babies will cry when their milk is snatched away. A cruel grin flickered across Salt's face. But still, if children are to learn discipline, they must sometimes be made to weep. Who did that worm Ruse name in his confession? Glocta leaned forward painfully and slid Rue's paper of confession toward him, unfolded it, and scanned the list of names from bottom to top. Sepgan Teufel, we all know. Oh, we know and love him, Inquisitor, said Salt, beaming down. But I feel we may safely cross him off the list. Who else? Glocta took a leisurely look back at the paper. There's Harrod Polst, a mercer, and nobody. Salt waved his hand impatiently. He's nobody. Solimo Scandi, a mercer from Westport, also nobody. No, Glocta, we can do better than Solimo, what's his name, can't we? These little mercers are of no real interest. Pull up the root and the leaves die by themselves. Quite so, Archie. We have Willem Dan Robb, minor nobility, holds the junior customs oath. Salt looked thoughtful, shook his head. Then there's... Wait! Willem Dan Robb. The Archlector snapped his fingers. His brother Kiral is one of the Queen's gentlemen. He snubbed me at a social gathering. Salt smiled. Yes, Willem Dan Robb. Bring him in. So we go deeper. I serve and obey, Your Eminence. Is there anyone's name in particular that need be mentioned? Glocta set down his empty glass. No. The Archlector turned away and waved his hand again. Any of them, all of them, I don't care. Chapter 9. First of the Major. The lake stretched away, fringed by steep rocks and dripping greenery, surface pricked by the rain, flat and grey as far as the eye could see. Logan's eye couldn't see too far in this weather, it had to be said. The opposite shore could have been 100 strides away. Calm waters looked deep, very deep. Logan had long ago given up any attempt at staying dry, and the water ran through his hair and down his face, dripped from his nose, his fingers, his chin. Being wet, tired, and hungry had become a part of life. It often had been, come to think of it. He closed his eyes and felt the rain patter against his skin, heard the water lapping on the shingle. He knelt by the lake, pulled the stopper from his flask and pushed it under the surface, watched the bubbles break as it filled up. Malachus Quai stumbled out of the bushes, breathing fast and shallow. He sank down to his knees, crawled against the roots of a tree, coughed out phlegm onto the pebbles. His coughing sounded bad now. It came right up from his guts and made his whole ribcage rattle. He was even paler than he had been when they first met, and a lot thinner. Logan was somewhat thinner too. These were lean times, all in all. He walked over to the haggard apprentice and squatted down.
Just give me a moment.
Quai closed his sunken eyes and tipped his head back.
Just a moment.
His mouth hung open, the tendons in his scrawny neck standing out. He looked like a corpse already. Don't rest too long. You might never get up. Logan held out the flask. Quai didn't even lift his arm to take it, so Logan put it against his lips and tipped it up a little. He took a wincing swallow, coughed, then his head dropped back against the tree like a stone. "You know where we are?" asked Logan. The apprentice blinked out at the water as though he'd only just noticed it.
This must be the north end of the lake. There should be a track.
His voice had sunk to a whisper.
At the southern end, there's a road with 2 stones.
He gave a sudden violent cough, swallowed with difficulty.
Follow the road over the bridge, and you're there.
He croaked. Logan looked off along the beach at the dripping trees.
How far is it?
No answer. He took hold of the sick man's bony shoulder and shook it. Quai's eyelids flickered open. He stared up blearily, trying to focus.
How far? 40 miles.
Logan sucked his teeth. Quai wouldn't be walking 40 miles. He'd be lucky to make 40 strides on his own. He knew it well enough. You could see it in his eyes. He'd be dead soon, Logan reckoned. A few days at the most. He'd seen stronger men die of a fever. 40 miles. Logan thought about it carefully, rubbing his chin with his thumb. 40 miles. Shit, he whispered. He dragged the pack over and pulled it open. They had some food left, but not much. A few shreds of tough dried meat, a heel of moldy black bread. He looked out over the lake, so peaceful. He wouldn't be running out of drinking water anytime soon, at least. He pulled his heavy cookpot out of his pack and set it down on the shingle. They'd been together a long time, but there was nothing left to cook. You can't become attached to things, not out here in the wild. He tossed the rope away into the bushes, then threw the lightened pack over his shoulder. Quai's eyes had closed again. He was scarcely breathing. Logan still remembered the first time he had to leave someone behind. Remembered it like it was yesterday. Strange how the boy's name had gone, but the face was with him still. The shanker had taken a piece out of his thigh, a big piece. He'd moaned all the way. He couldn't walk. The wound was going bad. He was dying anyway. They had to leave him. No one had blamed Logan for it. The boy had been too young. He should never have gone. Bad luck was all. Could happen to anyone. He cried after them as they made their way down the hillside in a grim, silent group, heads down. Logan seemed to hear the cries even when they'd left him far behind. He could still hear them. In the wars it had been different. Men dropped from the columns all the time on the long marches and the cold months. First they fell to the back, then they fell behind, and they fell out. The cold, sick, the wounded. Logan shivered and hunched his shoulders. At first he tried to help them. Then he became grateful he wasn't one of them. Then he stepped over the corpses and hardly noticed them. You learn to tell when someone isn't getting up again. He looked at Malachus Quai. One more death in the wild was nothing to remark upon. You have to be realistic, after all. The apprentice started from his fitful sleep and tried to push himself up. His hands were shaking bad. He looked up at Logan, eyes glittering bright.
I can't get up,
he croaked.
I know. I'm surprised you made it this far.
It didn't matter so much now. Logan knew the way. If he could find that track, he might make 20 miles a day.
If you leave me some of the food, perhaps, after you get to the library, Someone.
No, said Logan, setting his jaw. I need the food. Quai made a strange sound, somewhere between a cough and a sob. Logan leaned down and set his right shoulder in Quai's stomach, pushed his arm under his back. I can't carry you 40 miles without it. And he straightened up, hauling the apprentice over his shoulder. He set off down the shore, holding Quai in place by his jacket, his boots crunching into the wet shingle. The apprentice didn't even move, just hung there like a sack of wet rags, his limp arms knocking against the backs of Logan's legs. When he'd made it 30 strides or so, Logan turned around and looked back. The pot was sitting forlorn by the lake, already filling up with rainwater. They'd been through a lot together, him and that pot. Fare you well, old friend. The pot did not reply.